I'm Kane, that's Copes, and the road to the NBA playoffs has begun. But first we had the All-Star weekend, and you're always complaining to me about the shoes I'm wearing and you want free stuff. What do you know about shoes, Copes?
Not a lot. If it's not free, I don't know a lot about it. I'm trying to get some free ones. You got any deals for me?
I don't, but we're about to have someone on the show that knows everything about shoes. Nick DePaula from ESPN is going to join us. He is the footwear industry expert.
He's the guru of shoes, I heard.
What a world we live in where that is a full-time job, but he does it better than anyone in the world. But first, I was shocked on the weekend, Copes, something very disturbing to me.
What? Charles
Barkley turned 60. Can you believe that? The reason I'm shocked about this is because you played with this man. How can someone you played with be turning 60?
Because I'm close. It's hard to tell, but let me tell you something. Charles Barkley turning 60. Those were the days back in the day when he was 30. I was hanging with him.
All right, we'll get to the Chuckster in just a little bit. But first, Salt Lake City All-Star Game. Let's try and be a little bit more positive.
It's hard. It's hard to be positive with this All-Star Game. Yes, the talent was there, but that was rubbish. Come on, that was rubbish. You know it.
What about the city of Salt Lake City itself? I mean, we like to go to you as our US correspondent. You've been living in Australia for 35 years. But
not that long.
But you still say you're American. So what are your favourite American cities on the list?
Favorite American cities would be New Orleans for the food and the culture, would be Houston and Vegas. You got to go to Vegas. You only spend 3 or 4 days in Vegas, but you got to go to Vegas. Have you ever been to Vegas?
I have been to Vegas, and I agree there is a definite time limit. What do you love about Vegas? Here we go. Got some live footage here from the city that never sleeps.
You want me to be truthful? It's the nightlife. It's
I think
party.
New York's the city that never sleeps, by the way.
It's the nightlife. They're partying. If you can't have fun in Vegas, it's time to wrap it up, bro. Give it a go. Let it go. Vegas is the place to go.
You got no stories?
I got some, but I can't tell you. That's for sure. That is for sure. But let me tell you, it is a beautiful place. The food's good. The drinks are great. The entertainment's fantastic. The weather's warm. And now they got professional teams there, so it's even better. All
right, now we've brought a bit of positivity to the show here, Copes. What about the cities that you don't want to go to? I already know what's #1 on the list, but what are some of the cities that you're just scratching off the list?
Cleveland, and Cleveland. Get it out of here, bro. You can't go to Cleveland, man. I'm telling you. It's poo-poo. I hate to say that.
You're always on this show talking down Cleveland.
Well,
Midwest,
have you ever
blue collar, hard workers. I've been there.
Have you ever been in the wintertime?
I have. I lived in Milwaukee Coast, but you know, I tell you who never has bought a meal in Cleveland and never has to for the rest of his life. That's Daly.
Of course. He's a man. And LeBron as well. But if you want to have a good time, don't go to Cleveland. Go the other way. Sorry, bro.
I'm surprised. We like to think that you have a bit of bias to your hometown, Atlanta, Georgia. You didn't mention Atlanta. The food is great. Nightlife, not bad.
Well, it's been a long time since I was there, so it's probably changed for me. I had some good memories and some bad memories. I got cut as an Atlanta Hawks player, so I had to get out of there, come over here, shine for the Melbourne Tigers, and I end up staying.
All right, Copes, we love that. But now let's go to Charles Barkley, Sir Charles the Chuckster, and hear what he had to say about Salt Lake City.
These people going to heaven up this way. Ain't nothing to do with this boring-ass city.
Now it's boring?
It's boring. Ain't nothing to do with it.
I thought it was great.
It's a great city.
No, you just was like,
these people,
ladies, this is great.
It's a great city, but ain't nothing to do with it. These people all going to heaven. Oh, my gosh.
I never ate so much room service in my life.
Can't smoke, can't drink. These people going to heaven.
All right, Copes, it's time now to talk footwear. And there is one man that knows more about this business than anyone else. He works for ESPN, also Boardroom, covering the footwear industry. Nick DePaula just spent the week in Salt Lake City covering everything that's going on in that industry. How are you, Nick?
I'm doing great. Glad to be back from Salt Lake. It was a nice weekend.
So we look at All-Star Weekend and we see all the action on the court and everyone has their opinions about the events, but the shoe game is as big as anyone. And I was scrolling through your Twitter feed and it is endless, the amount of work you got done over the weekend.
Yeah, this is pretty much the biggest moment in the season that a lot of brands are debuting new shoes. A lot of the guys are trying to stand out themselves. And then if you're able to ever experience All-Star Weekend, there's just amazing events and activations that the brands really put a lot into as well. So from a sneaker standpoint, you have Christmas Day and then All-Star for me that are definitely the most two exciting moments of the season.
Now, Nick, who has the biggest shoe collection in the NBA? Which guy carries the most shoes?
Oh, easily P.J. Tucker. When he was with the Rockets, he had a secondary locker next to his that had a whole stash of his shoes along with like pull-out drawers. And then when he's on the Sixers now, he has his own locker again. But he always jokes. He has like a 24 shoe duffel bag that he'll take on road trips. And then their equipment manager will have 2 different 16s that they'll take too. So he's got options when they're on the road and obviously at home with his own home stash too.
Yeah, I did hear a story about PJ Tucker that he actually, because he's been traded around, spent a lot of time with the Rockets, then went to Milwaukee, Miami, he's been around. And I heard that he kept the house in Houston just purely for his shoes. This is just his own personal shoe storage home. Is there any truth to that?
So he had a house in Houston that I got to go to that had a hallway bookshelf down the hall by the bathroom, and it was actually a trap door to his sneaker closet. That was pretty amazing to see. And then about 8 months later, he actually got what he calls a sneaker loft. So it's a full sneaker loft downtown in Houston. It was right by the Rockets Arena, which was downtown as well. And so he had, if he ever wanted to, I guess if he's driving to the arena, felt like grabbing something else, he could definitely do that. And, he still has that, even though he's, of course, I think played on his 3rd team now since the Rockets. But, yeah, he does have the sneaker loft in Houston.
Nick, you being the shoe guru, why do you think shoes have become so popular? Back in my day, shoes were shoes. Now guys are spending tons of money for these shoes. Why are they so popular?
I think 2 things. The shoe deal is usually the second, richest endorsement deal outside of a team deal. So for a lot of guys, they're getting paid, sometimes 10 million plus to say that a shoe is cool and be involved in the process and have their own shoe. And then a bigger part too is in 2018, the league got rid of the color rules. So PJ could wear whatever color he wants on a Tuesday in Minnesota. And it becomes sort of a canvas and a portal to tell stories around their personalities. I mean, a great example I always reference is Damian Lillard had a red shoe that was a red and blue shoe that he basically waived the royalties on and launched an internship program with. So a lot of guys that have a signature shoe, they don't just wear the black, white, red team colors if they're on the Blazers. They really put a lot of storytelling in it. And you could do different launches and activations to also impact people, whether that's the city you play in or where you're from.
So if we get back to the All-Star Weekend events, Mac McClung lit it up in the dunk contest. Everyone's been talking about him. But again, I'm looking at your feed and I'm seeing that potentially this was not only a profitable exercise for him from a contract point of view and maybe his on-court career, but did he get a shoe deal done as well?
And how much?
I don't know the exact number, but, he definitely had a 6-figure weekend, no doubt.
Wow.
Obviously just getting added to a 2-way team with the Sixers, but then basically 4 days before the dunk contest, locking in a deal with Puma as well. He had worn Nikes mostly in the G League the last year or so, but, Puma's done a lot of deals with guys that are, whether it's dunk contests or even like Mikey Williams. They've done a lot of kind of interesting and compelling deals on the spot. So that was great. They had their own, it was called the Mountain Lair, and they had Mac come by for their party on Saturday night after the dunk contest to celebrate. And of course, they were excited to welcome him into the family. I think there's probably no better way to start in your first time wearing the shoes than winning the contest the way he did. So it worked out pretty well.
So who stole the show then? Again, all these guys are trying to show out. They're bringing different shoes, whether it's for the Saturday night, for the encore. Is there 1 or 2 players that stood out for you?
Definitely Mac. I mean, just being there on Saturday, I think people that knew him in high school had a certain expectation level, and otherwise, people probably weren't expecting much, to be honest. So he stole the show immediately with that first dunk and then each one after that. And then I would say Jason Tatum. I mean, he was debuting his first signature shoe with Jordan Brand to break the scoring record and get, All-Star Game MVP with the 55-point game. And then he wore 2 colors of the shoe. The second half, he wore a shoe that was inspired by the St. Louis Zoo and the trips him and Deuce with his son would take to the zoo. So, there's a lot of cool moments around that shoe that, it's hard to really beat that as a debut as well. And then the guy that stood out, if you were actually in Salt Lake, was Ja Morant. Nike built this like crazy ice sculpture of his shoe. They had an igloo inside where you could buy the shoes. It was completely ridiculous and really cool to check out.
To your knowledge, what's the biggest shoe contract going around right now?
Definitely LeBron. LeBron has, now he's on the LeBron 20, which is crazy to say. We're actually 4 months apart, so to follow it along this whole stretch has been amazing. But he signed a lifetime deal with Nike a few years back, so he's obviously locked in, and he has his own building at the Nike campus. So of all the players around the league, he's definitely at the top of the chain. And then Stephen Curry is right behind him. He's been with Under Armour now since 2013 and has his own Curry brand that they launched 2 years ago. So those 2 guys, and then kind of the elephant in the room, if you will, is Kyrie Irving. Of course, he was right in that top 3 or 4 guys mix. and right now is, of course, without a shoe deal after he and Nike mutually parted ways. So remains to be seen what happens with him in that situation. But, Kyrie was one of the top-selling shoe lines as well.
What the hell did Kyrie have on his feet for the All-Star weekend? I know you saw those shoes. I still don't know what it was.
So he actually, I was kind of surprised because I always get teased for packing way too many shoes for All-Star weekend. And there's a brand that makes a sneaker duffel bag, the same one that PJ uses. And there was a video of Kyrie switching shoes mid-game with that same duffel bag. And so he switched between 3 shoes throughout the game. The first 2 were custom painted by a guy named Souls by Sir, and they had different messages on them. But, he's got to kind of basically at this point block the swoosh out because it's kind of awkward. Like he switched mid-season, so he still is comfortable and wants to play in that shoe performance-wise. But, he and Nike obviously are out of contract. And then the third shoe he wore last was had a suede tassel kind of upper to it.
That's the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, that was a nod to his mom, who's her Native American history as well, and she passed away when he was young. So, it was a cool kind of tribute to her. But I think if you didn't necessarily know the backstory to that one, they definitely would catch your eye. And it's hard to think of any shoe that's kind of been that wild looking on the court in real time. So definitely an attention getter.
What about the local flavour, Josh Giddey? We see what he's wearing from the fashion standpoint above the ankles, but what can we see in the future for Josh Giddey potentially?
Purple's my favorite color, but the blue jacket was a little much. I'm not going to lie.
Okay.
But from a shoe standpoint, man, I tell you what, Josh has had some heat. He had a pair of All-Star Galaxy Kevin Durant's, the KD4s, which were from the 2012 All-Star. So shoe was 11 years old that he broke out, which was pretty impressive. And usually he's wearing a lot of cool KDs, cool Kobe stuff as well. So, him and Shea both on that team, they get a lot of attention for their style. And to me, they're guys to watch for sure, both on and off the court.
So we're talking about the players, but I also saw your collection that you took, and it looked like you took about 15 pairs for the weekend down in Salt Lake City. But when you're doing the job that you're doing, Nick, you got to be rocking up with some heat on the feet.
It was 9. I want to clarify. but
Did you have a game? What are you doing with all these shoes, Nick? What's happening?
Well, I got 2 of them while I was there. I got a pair of LaMelos and a pair of James Hardens. And then, a big thing for me is checking all the brands out. So if I'm going to the Under Armour event, I want to wear a pair of, Under Armour. So that's the Black Ice, which was Brandon Jennings' signature shoe back in 2010, their first signature shoe. And then Adidas, I had a pair of old silver metallic Kobe's, which I know not everybody loves them, but I've always liked that shoe. And then, Puma even, I had a pair of Chris Brickley's. He got his own shoe. The guy that does all the training, he's a really interesting character that's become one of the, in my opinion, one of the game's best basketball trainers. So he got his own shoe of Puma. So I was breaking those out. And then you got to have an airport shoe, of course. So before you know it, you end up taking 2 duffel bags, and you got a good little rotation for Salt Lake.
Hey, Nick, have you ever heard of a shoe called the Gazes? The Gazes shoe.
Gazes?
Yeah.
I have not.
That's good to hear. He doesn't know anything about it. We got a guy over here, Andrew Gaze, one of the most famous basketball players, and he's got his own shoe brand. He brags about these shoes, and I'm glad to hear you've never heard of it. Thank you.
It's current?
Yeah, it's good.
Well, Nick, it's probably it's more of the budget variety. It's for the young kids coming into the game rather than probably the big bucks we're talking about with the Jordans.
That's all good. I had a $40 budget in elementary school, so I'm down for that too.
No, I love it. Just from a casual point of view, though, I'm not going to lie. The footwear fashion is not my strong suit, Nick. And I had a pair of mid Jordans on, and I was at a game covering a game here, and a kid recently yelled out from the distance, and he said, "Mids, they're cheap." So I'm getting heckled. I don't know who this kid is. What's the advice for the fashion for the casual style? What are people going for?
Mids, unfortunately, get a bad rap because oftentimes it's a colorway that doesn't look anything like what Michael wore on the floor. So yeah. I would say the first tip is stick to something that's in the Bulls range or like the black and royal ones, something like that. And then I personally like the ones lows a lot too. So it's hard to go wrong with those. But I always say, if you like it, that's all that matters at the end of the day. And even though you might get heckled from across the arena, it sounds like, hopefully it's not too bad.
Now, Nick, everyone's comparing Jordan to LeBron. They call them both the GOAT. Why are the Jordans so much more popular than LeBron's ugly shoe? I don't like his shoe. Why are they so much more popular?
Well, not that that's a loaded question, but, I think the one thing with Jordans is, you know, in a lot of ways, it was the first of many, you know, and so innovative at its time. You know, it sounds crazy to say, but to have a black and red shoe, that was an innovation in itself, you know, in 1985. And then if you go through, you know, the Jordan 11, which is probably most of everybody's favorite, that was the first to have patent leather. And even the Jordan 3 he won the dunk contest in, you know, that was one of the first Nike shoes with the visible airbag on the side. Those might not sound like the biggest game changers now, but, you know, at that time and what he was doing in them, just became kind of instant classics. And, you know, LeBron was obviously more designed in a modern era from 2003 on. And there's something about those first 14 Jordans that kind of has a timeless wearable element to it that, you know, for kids even now is something they're all coveting.
Nick, we absolutely appreciate you coming on because, as we said, you have had a big weekend. And for me, this has been very informative. I need to learn more about this. We love your work over at ESPN. Thanks again for the time, and get some rest.
I appreciate it. Thanks, fellas.
Thanks, Nick.
Copes, what about that industry, though? The money that is poured into the sneaker business today is just absolutely absurd.
We had to pay for shoes back in my day. You know times have changed. They're giving you big money and the shoe collection.
Now, Copes, I was far too embarrassed to do this in front of Nick, but here's the culprits. The little kid's calling me a tight ass for wearing these.
No wonder he called you a tight. That's the cheap version. And be careful, don't split your jeans. They're very tight.
I've nearly done my hamstring doing that. But by the way, we spoke about Charles Barkley turning 60, and do you know what is even more staggering?
What?
MJ, 60 as well, last week.
Wow, those guys are getting old, aren't they?
Is that scary for you?
No, because I'm getting younger. Can't you tell?
Well, you're looking absolutely in game shape. But let's get to the break now with Michael Jordan dropping a 30-piece in the 1993 All-Star game.
Jordan with a move against Drexler, and Michael connects. There's an edge to Michael Jordan.
All the players have more fun when you're in transition in All-Star games instead of set play.
Jordan on a feed from Isaiah.
Give Isaiah credit that time because he told Michael to go back door.
West by 1, 9:36 left in the third, and Michael Jordan with an easy 2.
He just left 3 defensive guys standing still. The one that got picked off on the screen, the other 2 that tried to stop him on that move.
Jordan, 28 seconds. Oh, line drive.
How do you shoot a 3? Over to your left, fading out of bounds. Defensive player on it, getting smacked a little bit, and still not get down.
Because he's Michael Jordan.
Rebound, Barkley as Ewing hit the floor. Trubisky. Oh, what a play. Oh, man.
And Bull taps it once and can't make it. Charles looks like he's just determined to take over this game. That time, about as authoritatively as you can, he went coast to coast. Here comes Harper out with it. The Cats have 4-on-1, Barkley being the 1. How about that? And that.
Because Harper straight the open court, he's challenging Charles. Now, can you imagine Charles has just said, hey, kid, take this stuff out of here.
The Hall of Famer, the 11-time All-Star, the 1993 NBA MVP, Charles Barkley. And Copes, I told you that it's shocking that he's just turned 60. And the reason I say that is because it makes you feel old. You played with this man in the NBA. We always talk about your legendary career with the Melbourne Tigers. And yes, I'm being really nice to you, Copes, but you played with this man in Philadelphia in the NBA.
One of the best times of my life. Look, I got a chance to be on that bench for an entire year, and I was a rookie. And the older guys would always look after the rookies. So Charles Barkley and Rick Mahorn would always come by and pick me up and take me out and show me around. But whenever late night and they wanted food, they'd always call the rookie, and I'd always have to get up out of the middle of the bed, go get them food, drop it off. But they really looked after me. Charles was a great teammate, one of the best guys you'd ever want to meet. Talked the most trash I've ever seen in my life, though. But he could back it up. You know what I mean? He was around, mound, and rebounded the ball well, scored at any time he wanted. One of the best teammates I've ever had.
And he is known as an entertainer now, and that's what I've grown up with. Him, it's one of the great shows there, having a laugh, Shaq, Kenny. But do you still talk to him?
I've talked to him recently about a month ago, and I hadn't spoken with him in 25 years, and it was just like we were still old good friends, and he brought up some of the things that happened. And I remember, I'll tell you this story, I remember going on one of the road trips, and I didn't get an itinerary, and it was like a 5-game road trip. So I packed my little small bag, and we were going to the west where it was freezing. I mean, to the east where it was freezing cold. I didn't have a jacket. So after we got off the plane, Charles takes me to the shopping center, buys me this long black leather coat. I think he paid $800 for this leather coat, and said, "Look, young fella, don't worry about it." And I still got that coat today. No lie.
You should wear it on the show next week. That's a lovely story. That is a fantastic story. But as I said, we spoke about your NBL greatness, and we know that you like to throw it down. But you also used to throw it down in the NBA, Coach. We didn't tell you we were putting this on the show.
That was credit card high, though. But the guys got excited because I was a rookie. They're excited. Look at Charles.
Yes, Chuck.
Very happy for me. In fact, the guy I dunked on was 7'3". He was a big kid. Yeah. I don't like bragging on myself, but that was a good dunk for me.
From time to time, we got to pump you up a little bit on this show, Copes. But Chuckster was all over All-Star Weekend, as we know, and he had a few words to say about the modern-day player.
He would have said something funny.
Y'all baby these dudes so much today. They don't want to play back-to-back games. Every time a fan says something, they get them tossed. If they're not happy, they want to get traded. It's going to come to a head in the next CBA.
Copes, I don't want to get you fired up on the load management stuff again, because now I can turn on you and say this is the old man yelling at cloud stuff that we always hear. But we do say back when he was playing, you're playing every night. It's the physicality.
He played every night and went out every night after that. So if you can handle that part and come back and play the next night, fantastic, man. And he's absolutely right. There's going to be a problem if these guys continue to do what they're doing right now. Charles usually speaks. He's known for speaking the truth. He says what's on his mind. Sometimes it gets him in trouble. Sometimes it doesn't, but I'd much rather err on the side of saying what's on his mind.
Yeah, we love Charles Barkley. But now let's get to a big question. All-Star Weekend's just gone. When is the next time we're going to see an Australian in the game? Josh Giddey or Dyson Daniels? Do you see them making that step?
Josh Giddey, I see him. Josh Green, perhaps. Dyson Daniels. All three of those guys will eventually do something in the All-Star game. If it's whatever it is, dunk contest, three-point shootout, something. But Josh Giddey more likely will be in the All-Star game in the next couple of years. He's that good.
I would agree with that. Year two, and I think that sometimes he's not getting the credit because the rookie, he was in the news, but he has actually got better on the defensive end. He's got better on the offensive end.
He's shooting the ball a lot better these days. Their team's starting to win. And you give these guys, these young guys, another 2 or 3 years, they'll be in the playoffs, and that's when the voting starts, and you'll see him in the All-Star game.
And, of course, the Boomers as well, and we can't wait to see him in the green and gold. Maybe the World Cup, it might be the Olympics next year. But the NBA is back this week, and we're fired up about that. Kevin Durant might make his debut for the Phoenix Suns. We're going to get into all that next. ESPN, of course, is your home for hoops.
My time, and that's a race against my past. Whenever they clapping, that's 2,000 on the dash. When it kinda tickles me, and every day I laugh. Yeah, you know we number one, and you don't need to ask. We gon' get it done. 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 We gon' get it done.
Durant takes flight.
We gon' get it done. We gon' get it done.
What you call throwing it down.
We gon' get it.
The NBA is back on Friday, Copes, and we've got some big matchups over the next few days. The Grizzlies and the 76ers. The young Grizzlies just trying to right the ship. The Golden State Warriors and the Los Angeles Lakers as well. The Lakers, they're just looking to get in the playoff mix, Copes. And the Oklahoma City Thunder and Kevin Durant's Phoenix Suns. He might make his debut in this game. He said he's feeling good from that knee injury. Lakers, we can't go through a show because you demand that we talk about the Lakers on this show. Are they a chance to get into the playoffs?
Listen, I think the Lakers have a real chance now. If you add Russell to that lineup, he can shoot. You got other guys that you brought in. LeBron is freshened up and ready to go, hopefully, and AD trying to get them to that next level. I think they got a chance of making the playoffs.
Saturday afternoon, I'll have nothing better to do than sit down and watch the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Phoenix Suns. And I'll be hoping that Kevin Durant is on the floor. I don't think they're going to need any time to get this group together and gelled. Kevin Durant can fit with anyone.
Absolutely. And the way he shoots the ball with Booker, you can't double anybody. CP3 is distributing the ball very well. You got Aiden, who goes to work. He's grabbing all the rebounds. I like this team.
The Phoenix Suns right in the mix, and they're hoping to make another run to the NBA Finals, where they went down in 2001 after they had a 2-0 lead. Copes, you've been a star.
You're the real star. Well done.